Hello, everybody. Greetings from here in the state of Iowa this morning. Today, I'm going to be talking to you guys a little bit about Bur Oak Blight and Twolined Chestnut borer and the challenges that this presents and what we can do about it. So it's a good timing with spring right around the corner. So with that, we'll get going. If my screen will advance, here we go. All right. So Bur Oak Blight. Commonly referred to as Bob. This is a leaf spot disease that affects our native bur oak trees. And so we're going to start with that, and then we're going to kind of go into two-line chestnut borer and everything else as we go along the way here this morning. So the Bur Oak Blight, our range for this tree is kind of right here in the central part of the United States, the upper Midwest, across the central part of the country. These are native trees. You're not going to find these trees in Florida or California. So Iowa is kind of right in the heart of it. It's kind of right in the center of it, which is where I live, which is why I've been a part of this for quite some time now. Confirmed infections are pretty much everywhere Bur Oak Blight is, but it is definitely the worst in the state of Iowa, Minnesota, Wisconsin, northern Illinois, Missouri. Kind of see where it is the worst, but it is spreading across the country. So this is kind of one of those issues that we're just going to deal with in the central part of the country, and we're not going to worry about it in other parts of the country. These trees offer a lot of value to properties and homeowners. They're generally very old. Some of them can be 100 years old. They can be really quite a majestic tree. They really have a lot of really strong branch structures. They can have varying canopy size. Some can be very large with great big towering canopies. Others can be real small and narrow with a smaller canopy. But nevertheless, they do offer such a large amount of value to properties, and which is why homeowners are so concerned about this tree. And they'll really do about anything to save it, keep it healthy, and keep it looking nice. And so it really offers quite an opportunity for you and your clients to do what you can to protect these trees and keep them alive and keep them healthy. They really are one of my favorite trees up here in Iowa. So again, we're talking about the bur oak tree. So Quercus macrocarpa would be the Latin name. And just real important, the upland version of these trees that have the smaller acorns, they drop a smaller acorn. They're the ones that are much more susceptible to Bur Oak Blight. And so you just want to make sure you're identifying your bur oak trees and identifying them correctly. Those are the ones that are going to be susceptible to this disease that we're going to be talking about here today. The pathogen that we're talking about is Tubacula iowensis, right here in Iowa. Kind of makes sense. This is not a systemic pathogen. This is spread by wind and especially rainfall. So it's an external pathogen, and this pathogen kind of remains on the leaf petiole through the wintertime, and that's what poses a real challenge for us. And we're going to talk about that here very, very shortly here. But having this disease spread by wind and air, the disease severity is just going to be worse when we have a lot of rainfall in the spring, early summer, or very windy springs. And that is almost exactly what we have going on in the Midwest in the spring. It's very common to have 20, 30 mile an hour winds. It's common to get a long rainy spell in the spring, and all that is making this worse for us. So going back to the precipitation, these trees have been around for a long time. Some of these trees are over 100 years old. So why is this disease, why is this pathogen such a problem for us now? What has changed in the last 100 years? And one thing we can really look at is the precipitation trend over the last 50 years. And it is increasing here in the upper Midwest. It's been increasing by about 4 inches per decade. And so that's part of the real challenge that we have is the more rainfall that we get, the worse this is going to be. And until this trend starts to go the other way, I don't foresee this happening. Then this is going to be a problem that we're going to have to continue to manage throughout the lifespan of these trees. And so as we learn more about it and change our protocols accordingly, this is just something we're going to have to keep an eye on. Okay, so the symptoms of Bur Oak Blight, what we're looking for in the summer is we're looking for these, I call them a wedge-shaped lesion on the leaves. So as you look at the leaves, the lesions kind of start right along the vein, and they have this little wedge shape to them. These symptoms are first going to show up on the lower part of the tree, and then it kind of progresses upward and outward. And part of that reason is because the pathogen is still on the tree through the wintertime. When the spring rains hit, as the rainfall starts to fall through the tree, it's kind of like plinko. Those raindrops filter through the tree from the top down. And as they come down and they splash and they hit those leaves and they splash, they spread that pathogen to more leaves. And so we get at the bottom of the tree, we get a lot more infection to start there first, and then it progresses upward. These leaves will start to change color early summer, usually July, and then it just gets worse throughout the summer months, right into August and September, and right into fall. And we can see these leaves start dropping as early as July, but it's usually a little bit later than that. So again, talking about the real challenge of this disease, these spores remain on the leaf petiole through the wintertime. And actually, a lot of times, some of the leaves won't drop off in the fall, and they actually just hang on some of those branches. And as these new leaves emerge in the spring, and once we get to bud break, the leaves start to emerge. There's the pathogen. It's raining. It's windy. The spores are infecting these new leaves, and we start this process all over again. This is the real challenge that we have with Bur Oak Blight. It'd be one thing if these leaves would fall to the ground, the pathogen went with them, and we could start next year all over again. But in this case, this is a repetitive cycle that we have to deal with. I get this question a lot throughout the year. Is it Bur Oak Blight or is it Oak Wilt? And what are the differences between the two, and how do we manage between the two? So the highlights here is you got to remember Bur Oak Blight is that external leaf disease. And so it's spread by wind and air. The pathogen is going to enter through the leaf tissue. And whereas Oak Wilt is the exact opposite. That's a vascular disease that can be spread tree to tree through root grafts. The Bur Oak Blight by itself is rarely lethal. These trees will look terrible during the summertime. Leaves may fall off, and the following spring they will push out new leaves, and they start that process over and over and over again. And Bur Oak Blight itself just doesn't kill these oak trees. It's usually something else. We're going to get to that. Whereas on Oak Wilt, that can be lethal quickly. That can be within weeks or months. And it depends on the species. Oak wilt can affect every species of oak, whereas Bur Oak Blight, this pathogen only affects the bur oaks. And so we don't worry about Bur Oak Blight on a red oak or a white oak. Okay, so there is a difference between the two. The fungicide that we treat for both of these is the same, but the timing would be completely different. So even if it's misdiagnosed and you put Propiconazole in either one of these trees and misdiagnose it, you might be putting the right fungicide in the tree, but we could be doing it at the wrong time. So we're going to get into that here in just a second as well. But it's good to know the differences between the two. And if you have any questions, please reach out to your RTM or your extension office and make sure we're diagnosing this disease correctly so that we can, manage it properly. So like I said, Bur Oak Blight does not kill these trees by itself. Normally what happens is the stress of that disease opens up the door for a secondary infestation of two-lined chestnut borer. This is a native borer. It's a native bug. It likes to attack stress or weak trees. So the more stress that this tree is under, the happier two-lined chestnut borer is. and they really kind of hit a tree hard until they kill it, and then they'll move on to another tree. And so you really got to pay attention to the trees and look for this bug. It is very commonly misdiagnosed. I have been to a lot of properties where, we have, been looking at Bur Oak Blight, and I'll say, well, did you treat for Twolined Chestnut borer? No. Well, there it is, so we got to watch out for this bug. We're going to talk a little bit about it as well. So Twolined Chestnut borer, what it does is it feeds on the inside of this tree, and you get this noticeable dieback, and you get these. It starts usually up in the canopy, up towards the top of the tree, but you'll see these dead branches at the top of the tree, and that terminal dieback is a pretty telltale sign of Twolined Chestnut borer. As the infestation gets worse, you can even find D-shaped exit holes similar to emerald ash borer. And if a tree's really infested, sometimes I can pick it out and go, let's go look for D-shaped exit holes, walk straight to that tree and find them on the trunk of the tree at, 5 foot off the ground. They can hit that tree really hard, and you can do all you want for Bur Oak Blight. And if you're not looking for this bug, this tree is going to continue to decline. So it's really important when we're dealing with Bur Oak Blight that we are looking for signs of Twolined Chestnut borer and working into the program to turn this tree around and get it healthy again. It's really, really important. They're the ones that are going to polish off this tree. It's not going to be the Bur Oak Blight. Bur Oak Blight is going to hit it, and it's going to push out new leaves every single year. It's going to be a recurring thing. But the more that happens and we ignore it, the more that we open the door for Twolined Chestnut borer, and he's going to come in here and just hammer it. So when we're talking about the management tools and protocols for Bur Oak Blight and Twolined Chestnut borer together, what we're going to start with is our Propiconazole treatment, which is our fungicide for the Bur Oak Blight. It's a 14.3% Propiconazole. We're going to use this as a trunk injection. And the most important thing is we really need about 2 to 3 parts water. Propiconazole is a really large molecule. It's one of the largest molecules that we have in the injection industry. And so we need a lot of water to kind of help move it through the tree and get it dispersed properly. And so I like to have about as much water as you can, but we also want it to be, practical. I'm going to talk about the rates here next. And the timing is also incredibly important. And we really need to do this in the spring. Spring applications right at bud break, right as the new leaves are forming. So around here in the Midwest, that's going to be April, May. And once we get into the latter part of May or early June, probably going to hold off on this as the temperatures start to get warm. And I'm going to talk about that next. But the timing is really critical to get good success. This is not an easy tree to treat. We're not going to get 100% control on every single tree. Some trees are kind of hit and miss. I've learned a lot about kind of why that is, but this is kind of step one. This is your basic step one. We need to do a fungicide application for Bur Oak Blight. Propiconazole does have a little bit of phytotoxicity on Bur Oaks. Bur Oaks are definitely the most susceptible to this, whereas a red oak is hardly susceptible at all. And so my general recommendation is is 10 mils per diameter inch as a base rate. However, if you get a tree like this on the right, where you look up in the tree and you can see the branch structures where this has a smaller canopy, if we do a 10 mil rate on this tree, you have to look at that tree and go, okay, where's my product going to go? Looks like it's going to go up the tree right here, and it's got a couple branches, and we're dead end. We just have nowhere for the product to go. And that's why this tree got some phyto on those first lower branches. We just had a lot of product that went right to that area. And so on this tree, I probably would have backed that rate down and probably went with an 8 mil rate. On smaller trees, I've backed down to as little as 6 before, but on average, I'm going to say a 10 mil per diameter inch rate, and then I'm going to adjust accordingly based on what that tree is and what the factors are. And so the phytotoxicity, if it gets severe, you get this, this brown leaf literally within a couple days after you treat. The leaves can fall off. They can fall to the ground. Very rarely fatal. I have not seen phytotoxicity kill a bur oak tree, and I have seen some pretty extreme circumstances. I had a customer that did his math wrong, went at a very high rate, and literally burned every leaf off the tree. There was not a leaf left. Every one fell to the ground. And I was pretty concerned about it. We really thought that tree was not going to make it. We thought we might have killed it. A very unhappy customer, and we convinced him to hold off. Let's see what happens in the spring and go from there. And fortunately, that tree pushed out new leaves the next spring. It's actually one of the healthier trees on the property than the following year. So it actually was very good, but burning every leaf on the tree is not a good recommendation whatsoever. So it's something to be aware of. And it's also something that we need to communicate to our clients. It's really easy to have the conversation ahead of time. If you go to show up on a property, you're treating trees, and you communicate to your homeowners or your clients what to expect after treatment. And one of those may be, you might get a little phytotoxicity. You may see a little browning of a couple leaves. You may see a leaf fall off the tree. Don't be alarmed. It is a side effect that happens, but it's not fatal. And that means we got product in the tree. If you have that conversation ahead of time, your clients are going to accept that. They're gonna respect the credibility of your business. It's a lot harder to come in after the fact when a homeowner calls you. You treated their tree, and 2 days later, their leaves are falling to the ground, and they call you, and now they're mad. What'd you do to my tree? Why did my trees fall off? What'd you do? It's a lot harder to go, oh yeah, I forgot to tell you, that's a side effect to the fungicide treatment. So just make sure you're going to save yourself a headache if in your billing or your communication, just put in there what to expect after treatment. You may see a little phytotoxicity, nothing to be alarmed about. And it's just going to make your life a whole lot easier moving forward. I've been to a lot of properties on phytotoxicity, and it's a hard conversation to have after the fact. So I've brought this into my presentation so that you guys in the field can be aware of it and plan accordingly. Going back to the water just real quick, more water will give you less chance of phytotoxicity as well. So I do say 2 to 3 parts water. If you can do more and it's practical, go for it. If you can top off your bottle and fill it full of water and even go higher, go for it. But that's not always practical. It is a slow uptake. I understand it takes a long time to get these trees to uptake. So just use your judgment and use what you're comfortable with. So here's a good picture of some trees that were treated with straight Propiconazole in the spring. The trees on the left were on the property that was treated. And I'm standing taking this picture straight up in the air, so I apologize you can't see the property line at the bottom of the picture. But the trees on the right, these 2 trees in particular, are on the other side of a driveway. So they're on a property that we couldn't treat. So we treated the canopy on the left, and more trees off to the left off of the side of this picture. But this is a really good picture of what Bur Oak Blight looks like in the summertime. And we had a happy homeowner here. This guy pulls in his driveway here, and he's got green leaves. He's got a great canopy. He's got the shade that he wants. And when Twolined Chestnut borers looking around for trees to feed on, which trees do you think they're going to go for? Twolined Chestnut borers is going to look at this stressed tree off here to the right and go, yeah, this tree's in trouble. I'm going to start hitting it, So that's kind of a really good example of what a successful treatment would look like and what an an untreated tree would look like. Here's another property. Here's another example of where the trees on the right here, actually the entire property was treated. And the property over here, or the tree on the left by the corner of that garage, was not treated. So we treated every tree here except for one. And these trees look really, really good, except for the one on the left. Does somebody have their, if somebody can mute, I think I hear a little background noise. Make sure everybody's got their mute hit, please. Thank you. Okay, so the F series kit is kind of the best equipment that we have for Bur Oak Blight. Remember, we have a large volume of product that we're going to put in these trees. If we just look very quickly at the math of a 20-inch tree, at a 10 mil rate, we need 200 mils of product, and then we would need a minimum of 400 mils of water, and maybe even more. And so putting 600 to 700 milliliters into one tree, that's really hard to do with a quick jet air kit, trying to do it at 5 mils per time. And so the F series kit is the best kit to use for this. It's fast. We can get our pressure all the way up to 120 psi. We have the larger bottles all the way up to 1.5 milliliters. Very efficient, very easy to use, and very productive, very reliable. The other thing I want to mention about this picture on the right before I go to the next slide is I want everybody to pay attention to where my injection sites are located on this oak tree. This oak tree here has got the injection sites placed literally at ground level. I'm talking 1/4 inch or less. I'm not putting these injection sites even 2 to 4, 6 inches up on the root flares. I'm not putting these injection sites very high on the tree. I'm going as low to the ground as I possibly can without excavation. And I'm gonna explain why that is. This has allowed for a little faster uptake and better uptake and a little bit better control. When you look at the physiology of any tree, and an oak tree especially, we're targeting the xylem tissue for our product to go up the tree. And on these Bur Oak trees, their bark layer is really thick. Especially the higher up you go, the thicker that bark is going to be. That bark can be 1.5 inches thick or more. And it's a lot harder to get your plug to find that xylem tissue and get it seated correctly and at the right depth when you have so much bark to go through. And the higher up on the tree, the narrower the rings of good xylem tissue is. And these oak trees really only have about 2-3 good layers of xylem tissue. Whereas if we were treating an ash tree, for instance, you could be up 6, 7, 8 inches on a tree and find 13, 15 layers of good xylem tissue. Plenty of room to get that plug seated in there at a good depth, get plenty of uptake. It's easy, but it's not hard at all. But on these Bur Oak trees, they're different. They're very old trees. They're very mature. A lot of them have grown to the point where they don't need to grow much bigger. They're not trying to do that. And the more stress they involve, the less they want to grow. And so these rings of xylem tissue can be really, really narrow. And the lower on the tree you get more into that root flare, and you'll just find that it's a lot more forgiving. You can set that plug a little easier. You can find that depth a little easier, and you just have a higher success rate of getting very good uptake at a faster speed, making you more productive and getting just better distribution in the tree. And it's kind of one of the common denominators that I have found when I said we're getting 75-80% control on Bur Oak Blight treating with Propiconazole. One of the common denominators that I've found is the better treatments or the better lasting looking, healthier trees have all got these injection sites at ground level, very, very low. And the higher up on the tree I see a little bit more inconsistency. So we might be onto something there. I'd like to see a little bit more research on that. We'll see what can happen. I'm going to be working on some trees this summer, but it's something that we need to be aware of. Just make sure we're putting those injection sites as low to the ground as we possibly can. And I think you'll find yourself more productive and a lot happier, healthier looking tree. Additional stress factors on these trees. Oak trees do not like compromised root structures. They don't like soil compaction, and they don't like drought stress. So if you take a look at these trees here, we got a tree on the left here. We'll start with that one. And when you walk up on this property, what are some of the things that could stress out this tree? It looks like it was built, 4 foot from the house. So the house was built after the tree. So when they excavated that basement for the house, they probably damaged a lot of those roots. Looks like they built a walkway right on top of it. It looks like they even got hit by a piece of equipment during construction, got some bark removed. All these things have added a lot more stress to that tree. The trees on the right, they're being, they had a block retaining wall built around them. They got a walkway, all that extra compaction and limited room for these roots to grow all add stress to these trees. And these trees don't like it. If you find a bur oak tree across the street with a native environment with no damage to the soil, those trees generally will get hit by bur oak blight after these trees. These trees don't like this stress. So what can we do about it? Well, what we really want to do is look at Shortstop. Shortstop is a plant growth regulator, and these oak trees love this. These oak trees are mature, they've grown. We don't need these trees to grow any more than they already are. And so having a plant growth regulator reduce that vegetative growth and increase root development. We get a darker green leaf because we get increased chlorophyll production. We get a thicker, waxier cuticle on the leaf, which is great. This product can really be a game changer for bur oak trees in stressed environments. And so what we want to do is use that one part Shortstop, 11 parts water, which is your standard mix rate for Shortstop. And it's going to be a pretty high rate for bur oak trees. It's at that 150 mils per diameter inch of RTU solution. But the main thing here is that it can be applied anytime during the growing season. Guys, it's a game changer. You guys are going to get calls during the season, during July, August, September. My oak tree looks terrible. Come fix it. Come make it better. Come make it healthier, happier. What's happening? And when you show up on these bur oak blight affected trees and you get to the job site, you can look up and go, wow, yeah, it's bur oak blight. Looks like we got some two-line chestnut borer. And yeah, I can't do anything now, so I'll see you in the spring. Wow, that's hard. You got a homeowner, you're a client right there ready to spend money. They are worried about their tree and they want to do something. This is your opportunity to get the tree moving in the right direction health-wise and do something for that customer right then and there, that same day. And so this is good. This lasts about 3 years. And so this is great to do during the growing season, satisfy your customer today, and then communicate, okay, now I got to come back in the spring to treat the fungicide, treat for two-line chestnut borer, but at least the tree's going to start developing some finer root hairs. It's going to help. That's going to help with water and nutrients and overall health. We're going to have a darker green leaf, which is what they want. All this can be communicated right there on the site, and you're doing something for that customer there that day, and you're going to make them happy. And then when you come back in the spring, that product has already worked in the tree. You're getting 3 years out of that application. And now you can come in the spring and hit it with the fungicide, hit it with the insecticide, and you've got some happy customers. So keep this in your toolbox and use this when appropriately. Okay. And so we're going to mix that 1 to 11, and we're going to either inject that close to the base of the tree or dig a shallow trench. And for those of you that attended our Launch 21 event, you know that we have a brand new piece of equipment that is being launched in 2021 to help this application easier. So we're really excited for it. Keep on the lookout. This is the little teaser pick for you. But we got some new piece of equipment coming out that's going to help these Shortstop applications. And I'm really looking forward to getting it in the field myself this spring. So keep an eye out for that. Now we're going to circle back to the two-line chestnut borer. Two-line chestnut borer, we can treat that with the triage R10, similar to emerald ash borer. The beauty of the R10 is that this one can be tank mixed with Propiconazole. We couldn't do that before. So this is kind of a game changer too. When you show up on that property and you're ready to gauge that tree, you can look at that tree and go, okay, we're going to do our Propiconazole injection. And, oh, looks like we got two-line chestnut borer. And if so, we can just simply add R10 right to the bottle, right to your Propiconazole mixture without adding any extra water to it or anything. We're just going to put the correct dose of R10 right in the bottle and inject at the same time. So now you're not having to charge that that client, you know, extra labor for that additional charge. You're just going to charge for the product and your markup. But you can just do this all at the same time. Once the R10 kind of flushes the bug out of that tree and we can get this tree to become, you know, a healthier specimen, we can just kind of monitor that tree for future infestation. This is not something that we would have to just hit every year, every 2 years, like we would for emerald ash borer, where emerald ash borer is just going to, you know, keep hitting every, you know, tree that it comes in contact with. This is one that, because two-line chestnut borer is so selective in the trees that it wants to attack, we can just do the R10, flush them out, and then just monitor those trees and use it again when necessary. You may still have to come back in 2 years and do the Propiconazole application, which is also a 2-year treatment. I don't know if I mentioned that earlier, but it is a 2-year on Propiconazole. So when you come back with Propiconazole on a 2-year schedule, just monitor the tree. Just keep an eye out. If it looked pretty good the summer before, we don't necessarily have to add R10 again. We've already killed that pest. We've already flushed it out, and we're just kind of on the lookout for where they're going to come back. Okay. So as we close up here, Bur Oak Blight, two-line chestnut borer, we're kind of looking for that 1, 2, 3. That spring application of Propiconazole is our basic one-step fungicide application. The problem with doing that all by itself is a lot of times we misdiagnose the two-line chestnut borer infestation. And so if we just do Propiconazole by itself, that's good, but it's not necessarily better and it's not necessarily the best. So a better application would be the Propiconazole application along with Shortstop anytime during the growing season. And then obviously our very best treatment on those trees would be the R10 at the time of the fungicide application. I would not inject the trees twice to do those. If two-line chestnut borer is in those trees, I would just do it at the time of the Propiconazole treatment to just inject the trees one time. But you know, you can gauge that tree for yourself. But that's basically what you want to do. So as we recap here, when you show up to look at these trees, you've got to ask yourself some questions, and you really don't have the answer for every tree just based on a phone call. So you got to show up on the property and look at this oak tree and ask yourself some questions. Is it a Bur Oak tree? Is it being affected by Bur Oak Blight, or is there a history of Bur Oak Blight in the neighborhood, in the area? If there is, we know that it's spread by wind and air, so the tree is going to be at risk. You also have to look at the tree and ask yourself, well, what's the size of this tree and what does my canopy look like? Is it a 30-inch tree with a really large canopy, or is it a 30-inch tree with a really small canopy with not a lot of branch structures? You have to ask yourself that so you can determine what your rate is going to be on your fungicide application. You also need to ask yourself, what additional stresses are facing this tree? You know, where is this tree growing? Is it growing right next to a house, a driveway, a lake, a retaining wall, you know, a road, you know, or is it out in a park in the middle of nowhere? You got to ask yourself that question: is this tree a good candidate for Shortstop? And honestly, almost every oak tree is a good candidate for Shortstop because they're mature trees. They already have reached their maturity. And so Shortstop only helps that tree become healthier. It helps with those fine root hairs and darker leaf structures, stuff like that. And so regardless of the soil compactions or what you got going on, they almost are all good candidates for Shortstop. But you got to ask yourself that. And then you've got to look at the tree and ask yourself about two-line chestnut borer and find out, is that bug affecting this tree now? Is it nearby? Is it something that we want to do now? Is it something we want to wait? Do we want to flush this out? And so you really got to take your time and look at these trees and ask yourself questions, and then communicate to your clients of what the game plan is and what to expect. This isn't an easy one to do, and it takes a little bit of practice and takes a little time, and you just need to learn how to communicate with people on how we're going to attack this, and we can get these trees looking healthy. They're beautiful trees, and they're definitely worth saving. These trees are a lot harder to part with. I've always said if emerald ash borer attacked a bur oak tree, we treat every tree. People love these trees. They're easy ones to take care of, and it really opens up the door for opportunities for you guys in this profession, in the plant healthcare industry, to really offer some really solid solutions. And we're definitely all here to help you and get there. So as I close up here, there's my contact information. Again, I'm based in Iowa. I'm in the upper Midwest. So I've got Iowa, Wisconsin, Minnesota, North Dakota, and South Dakota is kind of my territory. And but reach out to your RTM in your area if Bur Oak Blight is in your area. So if you need to reach out to Corey and Emmett and Kevin Lewis, or anybody, we're all here to help you. We're all here to get out in the field with you and go look at these trees. In my area, I'm just a phone call away. If you would like to see this as a demo, if you would like to see this spring, to see the F series in action on an oak tree, please call me. I'd be more than happy to show up on the property, and we can do this in person. You just learn so much more in person than you can on a webinar. But we'll really make sure that we're getting the plugs set correctly, we're getting them at the right location and the right depth, and identify what we got going on with these trees and so forth. So please reach out to me. I am here to help. That's exactly what we're all here to do.